Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Deck Tech with Too Many Cards and Dice. Anyhow, I'm your host, Ben, and tonight we're going to go over Xenagos, God of Revels, or Xenagod, as I often abbreviate him. He is a 5-drop Gruul legendary enchantment general, 6/5 indestructible, who reads, at the beginning of combat on my turn, another target creature I control gains haste and +X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. And what that means is that this deck likes to play big thumpy things that become quickly ridiculous. And in the case of additional attacks, which factors into this deck, I can just keep adding +X, and it quickly hits ridiculous levels. Anyhow, this particular deck had its genesis, back when Theros was still fairly new, maybe the newest thing on the block. And an acquaintance asked me to build a deck for him. He was going to buy it, so I put together Xenagos for $100 at the time. I've made some improvements, and just age has made other cards far more. But anyhow, that's where this deck started, and here's the rest of it. A key card with Xenagos is Mage Slayer, a lovely piece of equipment, because when the equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to the defending player. So it doesn't even matter if the creature hits. He's dealing the ridiculous damage. So it's just lovely extra oomph for wiping somebody out. Fling is another lovely card for Xenagos, because after you make the creature great big and you punch him in the face and maybe Mage Slayer takes effect, you then fling it for even more damage. Get a lot of mileage out of that +X. Chandra's Ignition is a similar idea, except the creature you're targeting doesn't die. The rest of your field probably will, and certainly your opponent's fields, and maybe opponents, will go away, but I mean, there's a reason that Chandra's Ignition is the cost it is. It's a lovely, lovely card if you're running red and you're running decent-sized creatures. All right, Death Render. This is a card that survived the initial deck building there. It's only a small amount of pump comparatively, +2/+2, but it's the fact that when the equipped creature dies, I can put a creature card from my hand onto the battlefield and attach Death Render to it for free. So it's basically a free creature. And in this deck's case, I want the big creatures. So anything to reduce their casting cost is just dandy. Berserk. The only thing better than doubling a creature's power is doing it again. Yes, your creature will die. But in a pinch, you can use this as a form of green removal. So, I mean, that's something to consider. Plus, Berserk. Fatal Frenzy is basically Red's Berserk that costs more to cast and gives it trample, and it's lovely, and +X/+0. Just another great card. Now, I mentioned in the introduction that you want additional attacks, and this deck has a few options. One of my favorites being Seize the Day, because it has flashback. So you get 2 additional attacks out of this guy. And with this printing, you can't quite see it perhaps. Flashback is 2 in red. So even less than it costs to cast it from your hand. Excuse me. Blood Mist, a red enchantment for a total of 4. Target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. In this deck, that typically means I'm just doubling the damage. But on occasion, getting that second trigger of whatever the ability is really what you're shooting for. Either way, Blood Mist is wonderful in a Xenagod deck. All right. Full disclosure, I only recently picked up this Unnatural Growth. So I slipped it into the deck I picked it up expressly for the deck, but I have not yet actually gotten to play it. And what it does is a form of Xenagos, basically, except instead of one creature, I'm doubling each creature. So maybe this is not the exact deck for it, but for now at least, this is where it's going to live. Savage Beating, additional attack, or all my creatures get double strike, or I entwine it, and for the grand total of 7 total converted mana cost, they get double strike and an additional attack. Aggravated Assault. We are now venturing into combo territory. This enchantment lets you pay a total of 5, 3 red, and I untap all creatures I control and gain an additional combat phase, which means Xenagos would trigger again, etc. Now, this may not seem too bad, because 5 might be hard to pull off without infinite mana. That said, maybe Nature's Will give me that infinite mana. Whenever one or more of my creatures deal combat damage to a player, I'm tapping all their lands and untapping all of mine. Or Savage Ventmaw is what's attacking, and when he attacks, I get 6 mana, which is more than enough to activate... Oh, the card, I already forgot its name. To activate Aggravated Assault. Hellkite Charger, a dragon that has haste and lets you pay 7 to pick up an additional attack phase. If only there were some way to guarantee it. Oh, look, Bear Umbra, an aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has, whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands you control. I honestly think that of all the creatures available, Hellkite Charger might be the best option for this particular Umbra. Oh, and Totem Armor is just bonus here. All right, Mina and Den Wildborn. Why are they in here? Not so much for playing additional lands, although sometimes that's useful, but it's to give my creature trample. Because if I have a giant creature, I want to make sure it hits, and trample often guarantees that it does. Spellbreaker Behemoth. This is the commander deck version from early on, from a card from the Alara block. This 5/5 beast cannot be countered, and he makes sure my giant creatures can also not be countered. How great is that? Blitz Hellion. This is just a fun card. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not all that efficient. But for 5 mana, you get a 7/7 trample haste, and then you shuffle it back in your library. So you only get 1 punch with it. But with Xenagos in play, that's at least 14. Trample helps. You know, and who knows what else is going to be going on. And I guess in the case of cards like Berserk, I could set the timing so instead of it dying, it just gets shuffled away. I don't know. A rules maven can check that for me and tell me in the comments. All right, Froghemoth. Man, I have loved this creature ever since reading through my older brother's copy of S3, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, when I was a wee lad, maybe 8 or 9, and I really didn't understand any of the numbers. But man, Froghemoth, how cool was that? And now it's just a great trample hasty creature in Magic the Gathering for 5 that grows while eating graveyards, which as time wears on becomes more and more relevant. It's just a great card. Plus the art's pretty neat, in my opinion. Timbermare. Now this is a time-shifted version of a red card. Kind of time-shifted, time similar. 5/5 haste, and it has Echo 6, but whatever. When he comes into play, I tap all other creatures. I mean, and then Xenagos kicks in, so I tap all your blockers and I punch you in the head for 10 or more, depending on what other shenanigans are in play. I have played this on occasion, and I have never felt the need to pay the Echo cost. But if you need it, you can, and then he sticks around. Deus of Calamity. I love this card, and not just because of all the devotion it provides, which is more useful in other decks, but because he's a 6/6 trampler for 5, and whenever he deals 6 or more damage to an opponent, and Xenagos pretty much ensures that happens, destroy target land that player controls. And should Blood Mist be in play, that means, if I'm correct, I get to kill 2 lands, because it's 2 triggers. I could be wrong there. I've had a few beers. Regardless, I'm killing lands with this guy. Oh, and look, it's not combat damage, so I could blow him up or fling him and still kill a land. And I just now realized that. All right, this is another more recent addition, Charging Tuscadon, a 4/4 trampling dinosaur, but when he deals combat damage, it deals double that damage. I mean, for 5, not too bad. Phyrexian Hydra. I'm paying 5 for a 7/7 Infect. If you don't know what Infect does, well, you will find out. And when this is doubled, it is just a one-shot kill if it is not handled. The only drawback to Phyrexian Hydra is that it does not inherently have trample or any other evasion. But as you've already seen, I've got ways around that in this deck. Vorapede, just a fun little bug. Vigilance, Trample, Undying for 5. Tornado Elemental. Once upon a time, I would see this card a lot. Nowadays, not so much, but I like it. And this is another card that has survived my occasional purges and deck improvements. When it enters play, it deals 6 damage to each creature with flying. And then, it doesn't matter if it's blocked or not, because I can redirect its damage. Thunderfoot Baloth. I was wondering where this was. I knew I had one. I forgot I put it in here. What a wonderful night. Anyhow, you're paying 6 for a card that only cares if your commander's in play. But when it is, you're boosting all of your creatures +2/+2. And then Xenagos doubles it. I think it's great. Plus the art's pretty cool. Yavimaya Worm. This is a common from Aeons Past. A direct upgrade. My first example, my first run-in with Power Creep from Ye Old Crawworm, and then Urza's Saga was printed, and this was there. And of course, it made it to M11. This was in that version of the deck. I was going to sell that guy, which he backed out of. I don't know, and it's a 6/4 trample for 6. And honestly, there's a dinosaur recently that would easily replace it as a 6/6 for otherwise the same stats, but I don't know. I like the art. I like the worm. Scourge of the Throne. Extra attack. Flying. Dethrone. 5/5. And you're pretty much going to be attacking whomever because that extra attack is valuable. Hydra Omnivore. Look, folks, if you play green, creature beatdown, I highly, highly, highly recommend Hydra Omnivore. While, yes, it has no inherent evasion, when you connect, it deals combat damage to an opponent. It then deals that much damage to each other opponent. And it's a base 8/8. With Xenagos, it's a base 16/8. I mean, it just gets ridiculous. And it's extra funny when people don't understand just how potent it is. And then suddenly, the whole board drops from 40 life for each opponent down to, I think, 8, because I had doubled this and doubled it again. Lovely. All right, Rapacious One is an odd choice, perhaps. I mean, you get a 5/4 Trampler, but whenever he deals damage, you get to spam the field with that many Eldrazi spawn creature tokens. Well, correction, when he deals combat damage to a player, which can then feed your next big play. I think my record with this is that one hit netted me almost 20 tokens, which then, I was able to use for the, I think, only X spell in the deck. And we'll get to that in a moment. All right, Atarka World Render. Flying Trample, 6th floor. I mean, yes, it gives all dragons double strike, but really, It's in here to give itself double strike. Anything else is a bonus. Palaka Worm. I jam this into every green deck I build, regardless of theme, unless I am doing some type of tribal that is not worms. Anyhow, 7/7 for 7 with trample gives you 7 life, and when it dies, it draws you a card. This is another one that was in the original 100. Stonehoof Chieftain. Costs 8, trample, indestructible, 8/8. And whenever another creature I control attacks, that one gets trample and indestructible. What I'm really caring about here is granting trample. All right, Artisan of Kozilek. Look, I freely admit I am not a fan of Annihilator as a mechanic. Certainly not when it's turned against me. That said, this is mostly in here because it's a 10/9 that brings a creature back out of the graveyard, which matters a lot. The Annihilator is just icing on the cake, but since I've already am running Infect, why not add Annihilator? World Spine Worm. Go big or go home, right? Here we got a 15/15 for 11, and he's a trampler, and when he dies, he makes 3 5/5 worm tokens. And when he goes to the graveyard from anywhere, I shuffle it into its owner's library. I mean, he's a 15/15. Why not play it? What other deck am I going to put it in? Really? All right, Quicksilver Amulet. This, folks, is how you get a 11 drop into play at a reasonable time, by cheating. Quicksilver Amulet is one way to cheat. All right, Garruk's Uprising is obviously another recent addition here. And it's in here for all the card draw. Because I don't think we've seen a creature yet that has a power less than 4, except for all those Eldrazi spawn tokens. Oh, speak of the devil. Here's one with power less than 4. But Fierce Empath lets you search up a giant creature, of which there are many. Hunter's Insight. I love drawing cards. I love drawing cards in green. And in this deck, my record is drawing 88 cards in one go. I did not win despite that. But I enjoyed drawing 88 cards. So as far as I'm concerned, I did win. So there. But anyhow, again with creature-based decks, this is a potent, potent draw spell. Lifeblood Hydra, the X spell in this deck. Green, green, green X. Comes into play with X counters on it. Trample. And when he dies, you gain that much life and draw that many cards. Equal to its power. Not equal to the counters on it. So when he's doubled, I mean, this was part of that 88 card draw nonsense that I had going on. All right, Greater Good also feeds into it. Sack a creature, draw a lot of cards, discard 3. Harmonize, draw 3. Dragonborn Champion, 5/3 Trampler, and whenever a source I control deals 5 or more damage to a player, draw a card. Honestly, this green-red deck probably has more draw in it than at least one of the mono-blue decks that I own. So go figure. More draw, Reforge the Soul. It's an attempt to fix Wheel of Fortune because it costs 5, has much better art. Each player discards his or her hand and draws 7. And then, of course, you can Miracle it into play. Miracle is much better when you manipulate the top deck. I appreciate that. But on rare occasions, I do Miracle cost into it, which is just fun. All right, Hull Breach, a classic piece of removal here. This one, what was that? Set, planar, something. Anyhow, I can kill one thing or 2 things, as long as artifacts and enchantments are involved. Anger of the Gods, 3 damage to each creature, and then exiled any ones that I kill. My stuff should all survive. My opponents, not as much. Krosan Grip, you know it, you love it. Split second, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Basically, it's a combo breaker many, many times. And with all the draw in this deck, you should have it. Beast Within can also be a combo breaker, just not as much and a lot more proactive. Decimate. I like Decimate. And this has been around for a while, although this is a conspiracy version. Destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. Sometimes, folks, you've got to offer up one of your own to make sure that all 4 of those targets exist. The good news is that your commander, Xenagos, remember Xenagos? This deck's about Xenagos, is both an enchantment and a creature. So in a pinch, you can target him with one or both of those and not worry about it because he's indestructible. Great card. All right, Bane of Progress, a greater card for sweeping the field of enchantments and artifacts. I don't have many in here, so I don't mind running it. Other decks might want to reconsider. Terastodon. Who remembers this card? Who remembers when this was in every green deck? Nowadays, it's outclassed by all sorts of 8-drops. But, you know, it's been around since the inception of this particular deck build. So a 9/9 that kills 3 things to include lands. I love it, even if my opponents get critters out of it. All right, Blasphemous Act. Sweep the field. My stuff will probably die too, but I don't really care. All right, we're not done because those of you doing math at home know that where's the wrap? Where are the lands? It's in a separate pile to make this whole thing more manageable. All right. Surprise, surprise, there's a Sol Ring in this deck. There's also a Veteran Explorer. Why? He helps other people. A, I don't really care. B, it's a creature. On occasion, Xenagos pumps him up, and I can pop you for 2. Rampant Growth is to keep a deck affordable. You add a lot of basic lands, and this loves it. Burnished Heart follows the Veteran Explorer plan of, yeah, I'm probably going to sack it, but just maybe. Xenagos will pump it up a little bit when he punches you. Cultivate, get 2 lands. Kodama's Reach, cultivate, but arcane. Yavimaya Elder. This is the old original one here. Same idea. When he hits the graveyard from play, I can search my library for up to 2 basic lands and put them both in my hand. I can sacrifice them to draw a card, or I can just swing at your face and let you kill him with your blocker. Either way, I get the land, and maybe I get a card out of the deal. All right, Somber Vault Sage. He's a 0/1. Xenagos ain't doing much for him, but I can tap it for 3 mana to make a creature. Remember all those giant creatures we looked at? There you go. All right, the lands proper. Kessig Wolf Run is not in here so much to pump a creature up as it is to give it trample. Haunted Fengraf. I don't necessarily get to pick the creature that comes back, but I get a creature back. Ghost Quarter. I'm going to kill your land for a far cheaper price than Strip Mine ever is. Skarg the Rage Pits. Again, target creature gets trample is all I care about. Rogue's Passage. My creature gets through. Ideally, that Hydra Omnivore. Terramorphic Expanse. I love this card ever since being printed. And part of the reason I love it is the flavor text. To the point where if it doesn't have that flavor text, I don't run that particular copy in a deck. And for those of you who can't read, take 2 steps north into the unsettled future, south into the unquiet past, east into the present day, or west into the great unknown. I mean, and that's part of the reason I love the Magic world versus all the universes beyond, all the IPs. Because here, you can do stuff like that. With all the IPs, you're kind of stuck with all the lore of that world. All right, Evolving Wilds with the worst art nowadays. And it's basically Terramorphic Expanse, just a different version. Command Tower, you should expect to see it. Rootbound Crag, pretty standard for a green-red deck. Same goes for Temple of Abandon. Cinderglade. and a whole bunch of basic lands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 forests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 mountains. There you have it, folks. My version of Xenagod. By including those combos under the new bracket system, all the additional attack combos, I think that makes this a tier 4 deck. Optimized. And while it does have enough draw, I think that most seasoned players will look at this and realize it's not exactly optimized is not the adjective you would use. But based on the new beta test brackets, I think it would be, and I think that's ridiculous. Regardless, I'm sure they will hash things out as time goes on, and all of the millions of players make the changes or make the suggestions that become the changes we see later. But anyhow, if you like attacking people, pick up Xenagos and then just jam your favorite red and green creatures in there and then just continually work on it. It's a lot of fun. And that's all I've got for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. If you really enjoyed it, like and subscribe. And if you only kind of enjoyed it, make a comment or do all three. That's all. Have a wonderful evening.